Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Bow News Network. We're actually tracking severe weather along the border of New Mexico as well as Texas, and we're also tracking general weather across the continental United States. But as you are probably well aware, several national media sources have publicized severe weather alerts, primarily in the region of central Texas, as well as along the Louisiana border. So in this weather forecast, we're actually going to take a closer look at the weather outlook, also special alerts, temperature dew point. We're going to take a closer look at exactly what is actually propelling a lot of this severe weather, such as elements such as bulk shear and also various temperature anomalies across the continental United States, whereas the southwest is relatively dry, whereas the southeast is relatively saturated and receiving additional rainfall on top of rainfall compounded over the last few weeks. So before we actually get into this, if you're new to this channel, please go ahead and subscribe. We put together daily forecasts of the weather, taking a closer look at all severe weather across the continental United States as well as the Caribbean. Okay, so if we actually get started, we're going to take a closer look at what's actually happening closer to the border of New Mexico and Texas, and that's where things are getting a little bit heavy right now. As far as also the special alerts that are issued from the Storm Prediction Center, we're looking at pretty heavy weather in the area of Lubbock, Texas, Abilene, Texas, Big Spring, Texas, Plainview, Texas, as well as Levelland, Texas. And we're also looking at enhanced alerts along the lines of Fort Worth, Amarillo, Wichita Falls, Texas, Denton, Texas, as well as Midland, Texas. But you can basically see the central core of Texas closer to the New Mexico border along the areas of Clovis, between Clovis and the areas of Clovis and Lubbock, Texas. Very, very severe weather. And it's really what's actually happening is it's an outflow of boundary flow. And we're actually seeing that low-level moisture is actually being drawn in to that into the northwest section of Texas. And we do have, as we stressed in previous weather forecasts, very, very low-level moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico. And we anticipate that there's going to be a dry line along the dry line of the storm system, and it's going to be very, very severe weather. But you can actually see on the precipitation forecast and also on our radar that we have a severe spot of earlier along the border of Texas and Louisiana. And if you actually see going up the plain states, there's a severe weather going all the way up through Arkansas, up to Nebraska, as well as South Dakota, into other states such as Illinois and Indiana and Idaho. So it's been pretty severe weather. We do have that low pressure system that was anchored at the Four Corners, New Mexico, as well as Colorado, Utah, and Nevada. And that has been shifting, and with that, it's increasing the likelihood of more torrential thunderstorm activity, severe thunderstorm activity in the region of central Colorado, as well as western Oklahoma, as well as Kansas. We see some of the more severe temperatures, mid-70s in Florida, mid-70s in central Texas. We do see cooling in the northeast, 59 there for New York City, and all the way in Los Angeles is in the mid-50s, but closer into the core of California, we're looking at the low 60s, possibly much cooler up in the Sierra Mountains. As far as the northeast, we're looking at Seattle is in the low 50s, but primarily we're looking at that very, very warm core in Texas. And with that said, we saw several tornado advisories throughout the day, notably tornado advisory in the area of Louisiana, the Lake Charles area. There has been compounded tornado alerts there, tornado advisories, flood watch advisories in the region of Lake Charles, Louisiana. We're also looking at areas of Lafayette and also Iberia. We also had local spotter reports of tornadoes near Crowley in Louisiana, as well as near Jennings. So the entire area between the coast between Texas as well as Louisiana is really a hotspot right now for very, very severe weather activity. We're even seeing special marine warnings for storm systems that have actually ventured more into the Gulf of Mexico, and it's actually creating quite a bit of heavy weather. Here we take a closer look at the dew points, and we can actually see very, very saturated water table here. As far as on another forecast, we can actually take a look at the precipitable water table, but in this case the dew points are in the mid 60s, the upper 60s, which is all favorable for more torrential thunderstorm activity throughout the evening into tomorrow. So definitely we can see the dry line on the southwest side versus the dew points there that were in the core of the Great Plains, Southern Plains. With respect to severe weather moving across central Texas as well as western Texas, we do anticipate that as that low pressure system makes its way further to the east, that's going to actually be able to pull up a little bit more moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and also increase the likelihood of torrential tornadoes in the area. One other thing that we also take a look at is bulk shearing, and this is at a very, very high, relatively high altitude, but we're seeing very, very high wind gusts at higher levels, and you can actually see from the core map that a lot of these heavy winds are coming in along central, central Texas, along the border of New Mexico as well as Texas, even southern Texas. Gusts anywhere from sustained winds also 50 to 60 knots, and we anticipated that going into today and tomorrow that shearing would be a factor as far as 40 to 50 knot winds that will increase the likelihood of tornadoes being formed. And we do have from local spotter reports in the region of Lake Charles and in Louisiana area that there have been different funnels, spouts that have been formed even off into the water. They've actually spotted funnels, water spouts and funnels on land also. So this is a very, very heavy prescription for severe weather that's actually occurring. We anticipate that with the surface heating and minimal cloud cover throughout the day, that surface heating will be an element. So with that said, nighttime tornadoes are a possibility because surface heating tends to remove any kind of capping or any kind of mechanism that might prevent tornadoes from forming throughout the night. And as we've always stated here at Bow News Network, nighttime tornadoes tend to be the most severe, the most deadly, simply because of the element of surprise of lack of visibility. If we take a closer look at also temperature anomalies across the country, we do see that in the northwest, temperatures are 12 to 14 degrees above normal. Oregon, Washington, Idaho Falls, Boise, Idaho, Montana, above normal. But then when we take a closer look at the southeast, we see cooler than normal temperatures in the region of Louisiana as well as Mississippi, 15 degrees below normal, 17 degrees below normal, below average at this time of year. So there's definitely a clear dry line that you can actually see across the map that actually shows the distinction between above normal as well as below normal for this time of year. So there's a distinct pattern pattern of temperature anomalies in the region. And with that said, it actually relates to intensifying the instability of the air, particularly when you inject also warm moisture coming up from the Gulf of Mexico that interacts with these systems. When we take a closer look at the tornado advisory, we also see that for Beaumont and Lafayette, there were tornado advisories for that region, and that region is going to remain relatively under advisement for the next, going into the nightfall into tomorrow morning. We anticipate heavier thunderstorm activity going into tomorrow also. For the evening, we anticipate that for the Texas Panhandle as well as western Oklahoma, there's going to be increased activity, which is going to increase the likelihood of possibly nighttime tornadoes. So we appeal to all of our subscribers and those who view this weather forecast to please make sure that you be aware of all possible media sources, whether it be social media, TV, radio, whatever. If you have one of the alert scanners also, to be aware and have them ready for any tornado alerts that you may receive throughout the evening going into tomorrow morning, because we do anticipate that the weather will become severe at nighttime with relative surface heating throughout the day, which is going to increase the likelihood of increased activity for severe weather. So if you take a closer look also, we have actually spotted on our radar the red zones are actually the tornado advisory areas, and most of these storms are actually moving in an easterly direction or a northeasterly direction. But we're noticing that they're moving relatively quickly, and then we have local spotted reports of flash flooding, and flash flooding has become a very, very severe threat to residents primarily in the region of Louisiana as well as eastern Texas. Any kind of area that is east of the I-35 and is experiencing severe weather is probably going to be subject to flash flooding going into the later evening as well as tonight. We anticipate also, because of the tornado advisories, these supercells that are actually forming have above normal size hail relative to previous storms. And size hail, we're talking about an inch and a half to 2 inches have been reported as far as hail is concerned. And because of the bulk sharing at very, very high altitude, that could also increase the size of above average size hail going into tomorrow and Wednesday. So that is definitely something that we're taking a look at. We have on our minds the temperature anomalies. We're also taking a closer look at the dew point. We're also taking a closer look at other factors such as humidity in the region to see exactly how saturated the unstable air masses are in the region. As far as going forward, we anticipate that low pressure system will just continue to interact with weather. It's going to, that low as it makes its way further into the central plains is going to bring pretty severe weather to regions of Colorado also. And we have seen that as this low pressure system makes its way across, there's usually pretty bad weather behind the system. So we anticipate further severe thunderstorm activity for the regions of central Colorado as well as Nebraska. We're going to be watching the radar very closely. We're going to be taking a closer look at what may happen to Oklahoma City, Norman, Oklahoma, going into tonight, later tomorrow, because we anticipate that as that low makes its way across, we do anticipate that things are going to get a little bit dicey for residents in northern Texas, Oklahoma, Nebraska. And eventually, that will actually translate to advisories for areas such as in Arkansas as well as Missouri later on in the week. So that is actually what we're bringing to you today with our weather forecast. As always, we appreciate all of our subscribers, and we want to make sure that definitely hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell. We're going to be constantly watching the radar to see what's happening.